the recent decades, with the help of DNA, the law enforcement has been able to solve numerous cold cases and help the family and friends of victims to get the closure they deserved. But still, with today's technology, thousands of cold cases are still unsolved. This video discusses 3 such cases which to this date remains unsolved. But before we start, we would like to send our sympathies to the loved ones of the 3 victims who fell victim to the obnoxious acts described in these cases. Adrian Celeste Salinas was a 19-year-old student at Gateway Community College in Maricopa County, Arizona, when she went missing after a party in the early morning hours of June 15, 2013. Nearly 2 months later, on August 6, 2013, her remains were discovered in a desert wash basin near Apache Junction, Arizona. Prior to her disappearance and mysterious death, Adrian was an aspiring journalist, described by her father, Rick, as an intelligent, responsible, and motivated young woman who loves watching movies and reading. Adrian had a tattoo of a sun on her neck just below her left ear, and she also wore a lip piercing with a clear stone. She was very close with her younger brother, and she had a longtime boyfriend, Francisco Arteaga, whom Adrian had met in 8th grade. At the time of Adrian's disappearance, Francisco described Adrian as his best friend and the only girl he had ever loved. On the day of her missing, Adrian and her roommates hosted a party at their apartment near West 5th Street and South Hardy Drive on the evening of June 14, 2013. Adrian and her boyfriend, Francisco, got into an argument and decided to leave the party around 2:30 a.m. on June 15, 2013, so they could go to his apartment in Scottsdale and talk. Francisco claims that Adrian did not want to stay overnight at his apartment, so he drove her back to her own apartment around 3 a.m. Francisco never saw her after that. Before 4 a.m., one of Adrian's roommates saw her leaving their apartment again, but this time, she has an overnight bag. Adrian was reportedly planning to drive back to Francisco's apartment to stay there. At approximately 3:45 a.m., someone called Tempe police to report that a car had hit the median near Ash Avenue and Rio Salado Parkway, popping 2 tires, and was attempting to leave the accident site. Police confirmed that the car was Adrian's after they found it abandoned nearby later that day. After leaving the accident scene, Adrian is believed to have returned to her apartment once more to change clothes, though no one saw her before she left again, this time for good. According to phone records, Adrian called Francisco 11 times between 4:10 a.m. and 4:45 a.m. and texted to let him know she was coming over. At approximately 4:53 a.m., she spoke with a cab driver to arrange a pickup at a nearby a.m./p.m. convenience store at the corner of Hardy and University Drives. But when the cab driver arrived, Adrian was not there. The driver was unable to reach Adrian by phone. It was later determined her phone had been turned off around 5:07 a.m. Francisco says that Adrian never made it to his apartment again that night. Adrian's father, Rick, and Adrian had been planning to spend Father's Day together on June 16, but when Adrian didn't call or connect with Rick on Father's Day, he began to worry and reported her missing. Police opened an investigation, searching her neighborhood and interviewing people who knew Adrian, even going as far as searching nearby Tempe Town Lake, but their efforts yielded no official suspects or significant leads. Both Francisco and the cab driver were questioned and eventually cleared of any suspicion. Nearly 2 months after Adrian's initial disappearance, a man reported finding human remains on his property on August 6, 2013, after being tipped off by the sudden presence of vultures. Autopsy results were inconclusive, with the medical examiner's report finding both manner and cause of death to be undetermined. To that end, the Department of Public Safety was able to use DNA evidence to confirm that the remains were those of Adrian Salinas. Despite the inconclusive autopsy results, once Adrian's remains were located, police treated the case as a homicide. They believed it was likely someone dumped her body in a different location from where it was found, and a rainstorm likely washed her remains to where they were eventually discovered. Adrian's case is still unsolved, with a current classification of a suspicious death. To date, no one has been named an official suspect or charged with any involvement. There is a $20,000 reward being offered to anyone who provides information about the person or persons responsible for Adrian's death. Adrian's family and friends continue to hope that one day they will get the answers they seek, and that Adrian will finally get the justice she deserves. Tracy Sissom was a daughter, sister, and mother of 3 children. Tracy was making strides to get her life back on track, after she recently became estranged from her husband, Michael. She was not speaking with her husband and was in the process of moving out of the apartment they lived in together. Tracy had arranged to move into her parents' home while she took the time she needed to get her life in order. It was rumored that Tracy was recovering from substance abuse. Tracy was last seen near her apartment building on September 20, 2004. She had borrowed her father's 1995 black Chevy Trailblazer for her move. Tracy called her mother, Rebecca, around 7:30 that same evening to let her know she was heading back home. Tracy never made it home. Her parents feared the worst and quickly reported her missing to the Indiana Police Department. On October 4, 2004, a Marion County Sheriff deputy noticed the black Trailblazer parked along North Oakland Avenue. A witness would later tell police that while the car was parked, a man and woman fled from the car and did not return to the car. 3 days later, an unidentified man was driving near Gnawbone Creek and hit a deer. A police report was filed, but the unidentified individual returned to the scene the next day and discovered decomposed remains. The remains were so decomposed authorities could not determine the victim's gender. A statement was released by officials stating the remains did have a tattoo of a chain on the ankle and a flower on the back of the leg. The remains would be sent for testing through the Indiana School of Forensic Science. While no cause of death was ever made public, the death was ruled a homicide. There was no sign of drugs in her system. On December 17, 2004, the remains would be positively identified as Tracy Sissom. In 2006, Tracy's family offered a $10,000 reward for anyone who comes forward with information that leads to an arrest. Diane Theresa Francis's life was anything but easy. Her life started out simple. She was born in New Jersey on July 7, 1968, grew up with 2 brothers, and later moved to Florida to be with her father after her parents split when she was 12 years old. In high school, Diane had started drifting further away from her normal, well-behaved self, and as her father states, got in with the wrong crowd. After moving back to New Jersey in 1990, Diane met Charles Edward Snyder, who would become the father to her 2 daughters in the following years. Charles claims that it was around this point that Diane had began using drugs. In 1994, Diane, Charles, and their children moved back down to Florida in order to be closer to their families. Around a year after this move, in 1995, Diane met a man named John Schmidt, ending her relationship with Charles shortly thereafter. During their relationship, Diane had fallen deeper into her drug use, and their relationship would come to an end. In 1997, Diane would start a relationship with a man named John Boggs, who had previously served time in prison, and was known to be an abusive man. Diane and John's relationship was not only abusive, but always included drugs in some form. In 2000, Diane met a man named Roger Foreman Sr., who she would begin a relationship with quickly after meeting him. According to Sherry, Diane's daughter, during this relationship, Diane seemed to be happier and always joking around, right back to her normal self. After 2003, When Diane's children were removed from the home and placed with family, it seems that all contact with Diane was lost. Family members had no answers to give Diane's daughters about their mother's whereabouts. The final recorded sighting of Diane is reported as November 28, 2005, when she was released from jail with a trespassing charge. In 2006, however, Diane had called her father, informing him that she was not doing well and was very sick, although this has not been officially confirmed. Both John Boggs and Roger Foreman Sr. insist that they do not know Diane's whereabouts, and no additional information has been gathered regarding Diane's disappearance in or around 2005. One day in 2015, a past boyfriend of Diane's had attempted to file a missing persons report to the local police department, claiming that he had not seen her in 12 years. Unfortunately, Diane was not labeled a missing person at this time, and it wouldn't be until 2019 that Diane's daughter, Sherry, would finally be able to officially file a missing persons report, almost 14 years after her mother was last seen, despite several unsuccessful attempts. Diane was known to remain in Palm Bay and Jacksonville, Florida in the years prior to 2005, and was known to use the alias Kimberly T. Foreman. Today, Diane would be 53 years old,